All right, welcome everyone. I am pleased to welcome you to the Parental Rights Day, otherwise known as Mama Bear Day, hosted by the Family Foundation. And my name is Candy Kushman. I serve as Vice President of Grassroots and Communications at the Family Foundation. And today's theme is all about protecting our kids and the deep sorrow and distress that happens when parents find themselves unable to do that because they are being hampered and even purposely blocked by government systems at the local and state levels. And it is high past time that the legislator take action to address this problem because we have way too many kids suffering from this, from not having that protection, even kids whose lives are at stake in these issues. So whether it's risk of drug overdoses on campus because we have fentanyl and opioids being passed around, or trauma from exposure to explicit content, or even sexual agendas being pushed at first graders, which you will hear about today, parents are being cut completely out of the process. These parents behind you are concerned about this. They are seeing their constitutional rights to protect their kids from harm being totally disrespected. You're going to hear their personal stories about how they are losing their basic trust in the school systems. It is breaking down because of this continued pattern. You'll also hear from legislators who are going to talk about some timely legislation. It's especially timely since, as you know, this is crossover week and bills are going from one chamber over to the other. And they're going to talk about legislation that would take some steps to restore basic rights of parents to protect their kids, but also opposition to measures that would undermine that right. The bottom line is, rather than treat parents as a mere afterthought, or even worse, as an enemy to the education process, these parents today and thousands that we represent across the state are asking legislators to make sure that schools respect them and involve them in these processes. So without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Delegate Mark Early to share some comments about parental rights. He has been a faithful voice for parental rights.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. Without strong families, we cannot have a strong Virginia. It is that simple. One follows the other, and it's not the reverse. It's not a strong state makes strong families. It's strong families make a strong state. And you all being here are evidence of how important that is and how necessary that is. So thank you all for being here. I don't need to tell anybody in this room that the cultural trend right now is to devalue parents, and it's to devalue families. And that is the wrong way to go. We need to empower parents, not ignore parents. We are this session, I'm one of the new guys here, and it hasn't taken me long to figure out that there are a lot of bad things that we got to fight. And that is a lot of what we're doing here this session. But there are also some good things that we are working on and we're pushing forward. One of the things I just want to point out, a very important thing that has come up, is making sure that parents are aware of actual real physical threats to safety when it comes to drugs and drug overdoses. You all have no doubt heard the stories up in Loudoun where the school officials waited more than 20 days to let parents know when there was an overdose at school. That should not happen. And we intend to make sure that never happens again. So there is legislation going through that we want you all to support. We want you all to come behind. And this is just one small piece of the puzzle. I'm going to keep it very quick. And I just want to end by saying the people here, the people behind me and out there, you all are where the power resides. And it is our job here as elected officials to make sure that the power stays and resides with you. Because again, we are not going to have a strong Virginia unless we have strong parents and strong families. So thank you all so much for being here, especially thanks to all the kids. Thank you all for being here so much.
Thank you, Delegate Early. I'm also pleased to welcome Newport News mom, Rhonda Williams, to the podium.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for coming out and supporting Mama Bear Day. It means so much to everyone. I am here on behalf of parents and many of those in the community who are concerned about the well-being of our children and their futures. We are we're demanding that our parental rights not be ignored. We are asking for hot communication. Honest, open, and transparent. As parents, we should be included in our children's lives, not excluded. It is our right and our responsibility. We are asking that Senate Bill 498, parental notification of drug overdoses in our schools, be supported. Please support this Senate version of the measure, which has stronger parental notification requirements than the House version. As parents, we should be notified of any school-related overdoses immediately. Give the parents the opportunity to have the conversation with their own children and warn them of the dangers of drugs and the opportunity to help their children deal with any trauma associated with those school overdoses. We deserve the opportunity to decide if we even want to have the conversation with our children about these important issues that they face, whether it's overdoses at school or gender identity experimentation. But when we are excluded, the decision's already been made for us. It's not up to the schools or the doctors to discuss these issues with our children in private, excluding the parent. It is not up to the schools or the doctors to keep secrets and encourage and teach our children that it's okay to lie to their parents. Too many schools in our region have resisted policies that address these problems. That's why we need legislation's help to encourage rather than undermine a loving, trusting relationship between children and their parents. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, and many parents have lost their trust in the school and government as a whole. Help us gain our trust back by putting legislation in place that will truly benefit the well-being of our children and their futures. Now is your opportunity to earn that trust back. Demonstrate courage and protect kids by protecting parental rights to include us and not exclude us. We are asking that policy be put in place, notifying parents immediately of any school-related overdoses, and we are also asking that our children and communities are further protected by shutting down any legislation that allow operation of recreational or retail marijuana pop-up shops. Exposure equals usage. The more they're exposed, the more they're apt to use. We don't want our children exposed to or lured to or enticed by marijuana dispensaries or by pop shops on every corner. Data shows that frequent access to marijuana results in more kids going to poison control centers or having hallucinations. Our kids deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'd now like to welcome Doug Bottoms of Fairfax Dad to share his story.
Good morning. I'm Doug Bottoms from Fairfax. Just want to warn parents about what's happening in some of our schools. My wife and I, we have two sons in the Virginia public education system. We chose to opt our sons out of the family life education curriculum because those are conversations that we as parents prefer to have with our sons. In November, the school facilitated a Veterans Day event where a transgender parent volunteered to read to a group of first graders. This group of first graders included my 6-year-old son. While in front of the class, the transgender discussed aspects of his transition from a man to a woman, i.e. how he used to be a boy with short hair, that he used to be one of the students' dad, but now he was the student's second mother. To reiterate, we opted out of these types of discussion, the school having these types of discussions with our children. We opted out in writing. So did several other parents. We didn't learn about this from the school. We learned about it from our 6-year-old son at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. We got as much information as we could, and then we confirmed it with 2 adults at the school, one of which had direct access. The school indicated, we informed as many parents as we could and requested the school do the same. The school indicated they probably would not do so. To date, the school has not provided details in writing regarding the incident, nor has it informed all the parents regarding what happened, preventing parents the ability to discuss the issues with their children. In our eyes, this was very deceitful. Our impression, based on our interactions with the school, is they got caught, and they're trying to cover it up.
That's right.
Conclusions. Overall, we come to the following conclusions. The LGBTQ agenda is acting like a religion that will manufacture initiatives like this to proselytize to our children, push their sexual agendas, and our school districts will facilitate such events. And they'll plead ignorance when you address it. There remains zero accountability for leaders and educators in our school system, and without change, these issues will continue to occur. And due to lack of required notification and a peer school district consent, we have absolutely no way of knowing how often these types of extra family life education events are taking place in our classrooms. We've lost control of our school system at the expense of our children. So going forward, everyone needs to compel the governor to veto anything that aims to restrict parents' rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. It's now my honor to welcome Delegate Nick Freitas, who has been a passionate and persevering voice on parental rights issues.
Well, thank you to all the parents and the children for being here today, and thank you to the members of the press for being here. I would have loved to have had you at our committee meeting. That would have been great, because when we were introducing Sage's Law, the first thing that happened I thought was interesting is we now had to testify, and we had to have people come and testify on behalf of Sage's Law with another bill that had absolutely nothing to do with what our bill was doing, which of course caused a great deal of confusion among those who were there to testify. It caused confusion with respect to members of the board, and I think that was the intention. Right, let's not pretend that this was just about trying to get through everything and taking similar bills together. No, there was an intended purpose here, because thankfully, Michelle Blair is going to be able to come up here and speak directly after me and be able to share her story in the full context that she should have been afforded within the committee process, but she was not, and I believe it was by design. Now, some people will say, don't you think that's a little bit inappropriate to assume the intentions of others? Really? Because they don't seem to think it's wrong to assume our intentions. Because every time we bring up concerns about parental issues, it's like, no, you're just bigots. Right? There's something wrong with you, and now the state is going to improve that. Right? They're going to correct that in your children, because obviously you can't be trusted as parents in order to convey the sort of values and education that your child should have. Now, I will say, there are ample examples of history where the state decides that it will play the primary role with respect to the care, upbringing, and education of children. But none of those states exist in free societies. See, in free societies, we understand something. Not every parent is perfect. Not every teacher is perfect. Not every school administrator is perfect. Lo and behold, not every politician is perfect. And so what do? We assume on the side of the mother and the father that brought the child into existence, that is responsible for their care, their upbringing, clothing them, feeding them, raising them, being there through every aspect of their life as they're going through difficulties and challenging, and then shepherding them through that process. We give the benefit of the doubt to the parent until they demonstrate that they're not worthy of the benefit of the doubt. And what Sage's Law did, and we were willing to amend it. We did do amendments. What Sage's Law did was we said, look, we're not expecting a teacher to immediately pick up the phone and call the parent because they heard some child in passing say that they were struggling with gender identity. That's not what the bill was about. The bill was about saying this: before the school decides to proactively affirm a child's dysphoria, you need to let the parent know. Yes. Now, if you believe that there's a genuine concern with respect to abuse, well, last time I checked, you're mandatory reporters. Yes. There's a process for doing that, and you should exercise that process if you truly believe that a threat exists. But if you don't, or you don't have sufficient evidence to do so, let me explain to you what this looks like for parents. I want you to imagine if your child, for some reason, was walking around the Capitol grounds, an adult came up to him in Capitol Square and said, look, your parents don't understand you the way I do. Right? I understand that you have questions and you have confusions. We're going to help you work through those confusions. And yeah, you probably can't tell your parents because they might not understand. They might hurt you. But listen to me instead. If that happened out there, if it happened on the street out there, it would not only be incredibly creepy, it would be illegal. But then all of a sudden, we bring it into the school system, and now it's education. And you wonder why there is a breakdown in trust between the government-run school system and parents? Because we tell them by law, you will either drop your kids off at this school or you'll be guilty of truancy. Unless, of course, you can afford an alternative. So we have some really serious questions to ask ourselves on what sort of society do we want to be. Do we want to be the sort of society where the state ultimately gets to decide what sort of ideology is going to be pushed on a child? Or are we a society, a free society, which believes that we leave those decisions to the parent? Because all of history demonstrates that with some notable exceptions, nobody cares about the health and well-being of that child more than the parents. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And quite frankly, I'm getting tired, and I think a lot of the people here are getting very tired of the state treating us like we're the suspects. We're the ones that can't be trusted. Well, quite frankly, I don't have a great deal of trust in an institution which is so determined to hide vital information from parents. And by the way, I don't give into this argument either that, well, if you just had a better relationship with your kids, that wouldn't be a problem. Let me ask you something. Anybody that's a parent here, I have a 21-year-old daughter, I have an 18-year-old son, I have a 16-year-old daughter. I have a great relationship with my kids. But if my kids were going into an environment where they had authority figures, people that I had told them to respect, telling them, hey, I know you're going through this and your parents might not like it, but don't worry, you don't have to tell them. You can trust us instead. I would find that a little bit suspect. Yes. I would find that sort of behavior and that sort of activity actually contributing to the destruction of my good relationship with my child. Yes. And that's not the sort of position that our school system, a school system funded by the people here, should have to endure. So I think all we're asking at this point is, I'm not trying to walk in to any public school and push my agenda or ideology, whether it be political, whether it be religious. I'm not trying to do that. Because quite frankly, I think we got enough work ahead of us with just reading, writing, and arithmetic. Right? It would be one thing if we were just knocking it out of the park on all those subjects. We had all this extra time to do this other stuff. We're not. But the thing that is getting really frustrating is getting me to the point where I'm sorry. I'm not assuming good intentions anymore. Is when I watch a mother that had to watch her child be trafficked multiple times, and everyone within the system that was supposed to help her daughter and help her did the opposite. And then she's not even allowed to get up in committee and give her full testimony. That's a travesty, and it cannot be tolerated. So I thank you to all the parents and the organizations for putting this on, and we will continue to fight with you.
Thank you, Delegate Freitas. I'd now like to welcome up Michelle Blair, mother of Sage, who inspired Sage's Law.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all sweating with me here. My name is Michelle Blair. I am the mother and the grandmother of Sage, for whom Sage's Law is named. I am here today to express my profound disappointment and disgust that partisan politics has again interfered with protecting innocent children like my beautiful Sage. Sage's Law is straightforward, non-controversial. It simply says the parents should be informed when their children say that they identify as another sex and request that school staff affirm an alternative identity. That's it. Parents are to be made aware of an important decision that affects their child's health and well-being. Parents are notified and must consent before they even give them a Tylenol or permitted to play sports. So why is a bill saying the same rule applies to announcements of an alternate gender identity not even voted out of committee? I don't get it. Opponents of the bill claim that they're trying to keep children safe. Well, I'm here to tell you Sage's story demonstrates that that is false. Sage was being harassed, threats of violence, rape, and death. Why in the world did the Appomattox School District not tell me, her mother? Keeping me in the dark did not keep Sage safe. It drove her into the hands of sex traffickers. We had a counselor tell her the second day of school to use the boys' bathroom. The other counselor gave her transgender websites he recommended she go on them on the school computer. How many more children does this have to happen to before we pass Sage's Law? Because I'm telling you right now, I didn't have a lot of knowledge on human trafficking, but after Sage got lost, I found out real quickly that human trafficking is very real here in Virginia. According to the local Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, it's going on behind closed doors. It's up and down Interstate 81 and 64 and state routes like 29. And here's a fact. 1 of 4 girls and 1 of 6 boys will be sexually abused before they are 18. Why? Because predators are luring children on social media, testing apps, gaming devices, school computers, right here in our communities. Any child with access to smart devices are all vulnerable to this pervasive evil. This is a subject that nobody wants to talk about until it happens to your child. Parents know and love our children better than any school staff. There is nobody in a school, there's no judge, there is nobody in this world that loves Sage more than me, her parent. We are the experts on our children, not them. Schools have no business making any decisions for our children without our knowledge, none. Our children are being hurt by a social contagion. There are thousands of vulnerable children just like Sage out there. And let me be perfectly clear, because Sage's Law has nothing to do with lifestyles, politics, or religion, because that's adult subjects that we're putting adult subjects on children. The schools, counselors, and judges are not respecting our fundamental parental rights. Why do those who even vote Sage's Law out of committee refuse to stand up for parents and children? Why? Thank you, guys.
And now to address the concerns of parents with explicit books in schools from a parent perspective is Rebecca Mess, a Hanover mom.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Mess. My 3 children have attended public school in Hanover County for over 10 years, but more recently, I have been speaking out at school board meetings. I'm a local mom who, in my growing up years, was raised on common sense values that benefited me. Age-old American ideals like honoring God, respecting parents, cherishing innocence, and telling the truth. That was the 70s, 80s, and 90s for me. Fast forward, and today's parents have witnessed a disturbing shift away from these sound principles. In the classroom, it is manifested with policies that undermine parents, disregard protections for students, and opened the floodgates to sexual exploration, which only harms the bodies, hearts, and minds of our children. This is why I'm here today. Recently in Hanover County, parents became aware of dozens of sexually explicit books found in school libraries. We're talking about stories entirely focused on sexual experimentation, replete with pornographic details and illustrations. Some include illicit drug abuse. Many are peppered with obscene profanity and derogatory terms. Suicidal ideation is presented in several books. We even saw incest and pedophilia explored. These texts are so vulgar, they're not permitted to be read aloud at school board meetings, yet kids are encouraged to check them out at school. Why are we even arguing about this? These books clearly don't line up with the standards of excellence and enrichment imagined for students. Obscene pornographic material should not be delivered to minors for any purpose and has no place in taxpayer-funded public schools. I'm grateful our school board listened to parents instead of ignoring them like so many others do, and updated its policy in a manner that safeguards all kids going forward. Which brings me to my final point. I understand a bill is moving through the House and Senate, and if passed, would codify language that basically ties the hands of school boards from being able to address parents' concerns on this issue. While supporters argue that sexually explicit books are relatable to some students and therefore educationally suitable, we would respond that none of these books are banned and are available at the local public library or for purchase everywhere books are sold. We would also say that hypersexualized content ought not be pushed on kids in school, and as parents, we have a constitutionally protected right to oversee the care and education of our own children. We therefore urge all legislators to vote down this bill. In the 1972 U.S. Supreme Court case, Wisconsin versus Yoder, the court opined that the primary role of the parent in the upbringing of their children is now established beyond debate as an enduring American tradition. To our representatives, we say today, please respect that which is already constitutionally protected and upheld by Virginia law. Please fight to defend the obvious. Please protect the rights of parents. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Victoria Cobb, president of the Family Foundation, who will provide a summary statement and take questions from the media.
Thank you, Candy. And yes, I do wear two hats, one around here, which is the president of the Family Foundation, and also a Mama Bear hat of 4 children. But if you've been around this building long enough, you know that every interest group known to mankind is here to represent their industry or their interest. What some parents across our Commonwealth don't know is that there are full-time paid lobbyists down here working in direct opposition to their rights. When I sat in committee and saw the Virginia Education Association and the Superintendents Association representative testify in committee opposing the bill requiring schools to simply notify their kids when there's been a drug overdose, I was stunned, and I knew that these parents had to be brought down to the Capitol en masse to simply make a message that should be universally understood. It's sad that everyday mom and dads who are busy raising their families and running their businesses have to come down here to defend themselves and their interests. Parental rights should be assumed. I was part of passing that parental rights statute that we have in our code back in 2013, and that statute merely codifies what the U.S. Supreme Court has made crystal clear that Becca just referenced a few minutes ago, that basically parents have the fundamental rights of their children. And back then, when we were trying to pass that statute, every education establishment lobbyist stood in a line to tell our legislators that they were right and that they knew better than parents. Not much has changed down here in the last decade or so since then. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now. A parent will always know and love their child in a way that an administrator or a math teacher will not. And that's not to say we don't honor our teachers and appreciate them for the great work that they are doing, but it is to say that they are parent supports, not replacements, and they need to understand their role. Whether we're speaking about choices in books and being age appropriate and for their child's development and maturity, or we're talking about gender confusion, a parent must be assumed to be a child's greatest protector. That has to be the starting point. So we thank you for your time, and we are open to questions specifically from the media. And there's a lot of folks here. I want to just kind of target in on you guys for your time and anything you would have. Yes?
Just to clarify, talking about the retail marijuana, obviously 2 very different bills going through both chambers. Are you looking for language to keep them away from schools, or just flat out you don't even want them?
Yeah, we oppose the commercialization of marijuana. Parents do not want to see a pot shop on every corner. It is not helpful to their kids. They are doing everything they can to keep their kids from a life of addiction, and that just enables it. So yes, we oppose both bills. Yes?
On the parental notification law, Democrats who passed these bills basically said that it would just prevent school districts from painting a broad brush and ban books. If each local school district wanted to go through a process, they could. Are they wrong on that, and why are you guys right?
Yeah, very clearly in the bill, what they're trying to do is introduce the idea that nothing in the, this is referencing back to the original bill that said, look, we're going to notify parents if there's sexual content in curriculum. And what they're trying to do is put into our code the idea that nothing in that could ever actually permit censorship is the word that they use. It is different than the way we've discussed this bill in the past. And so they are very intentionally with a wide open definition of censorship, which is the debate, right? Every school board meeting, somebody's walking in from the education establishment saying, this is censorship. And the parents are just saying, no, this is about age appropriateness. So they're trying to put the word censorship into our code to have a chilling effect on these school boards. So the school boards can look at parents and go, we can't do anything. And that's exactly what the intention is. And so, yeah, we absolutely oppose this effort to undermine what we think was a great policy that was put in place in the first place, and to allow parents to continue to work with their local school boards to get to what are the best books for our kids in libraries? How do we steer kids towards the right kind of books that are appropriate for their ages? Yeah.
So is it just a chilling effect, or would it legally prevent places like Hanover from taking a whole bunch of books out of the library all at one time?
Yeah, so that's going to come down to the lawyers. I will tell you that. I will tell you that school boards are going to use it to say they can't. Any school board that is remotely wanting to resist parents will absolutely say, now we can't take anything out of the library. Imagine a library for a 5-year-old that they can walk into kindergarten, they walk in, and it can have anything. Because that's a wide open definition of censorship. And if you say nothing will permit censorship, what is that saying? So yeah, we think absolutely it's going to come down to a huge battle, and they're going to claim they legally cannot. So that's the county attorney is going to go, oh, sorry, we can't do this, and parents are going to be shut down. All right, I think that's all we have from the media. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate your time.